back to this special chat with Raghuram Rajan on his new book, The Third Pillar. Dr. Rajan, now let me come to what the dangers you say are, besetting global trade itself. You have spoken about how we have to reimagine the IMF, give more powers to China in particular, and even to countries like India. Do you think it is feasible at all, say in the near future, in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years?
So one of the things I always complain about is that we look at the present and we feel so disheartened by the present. We think there's no way out. And to some extent, the book is an attempt to imagine the future and say, what are the things that we will need to do in order to get to a better place? Now, you first need imagination. What is the future that you are thinking about that you think could work better? Then, as people see that, the political forces start getting together and do what is necessary. My old report on the financial sector in the 2008 with a very eminent committee, we've implemented much of that. But at the time we brought it out, most people said, this is not going to fly. This is a bunch of pie-in-the-sky ideas. What do you mean? You're going to free up branching for banks in India? We've never allowed that. And we've seen branching freed up. So, things can happen. The broader point is that the world as created by the United States, the economic world as created by the United States post-World War II, is reaching the end of its shelf life. There are a number of economies which are large now that weren't large then. China, of course, India soon, the European Union itself is an agglomeration that didn't exist then. And in this multipolar world, the idea that one hegemon would continue to determine a lot of what goes on simply doesn't hold. We need to bring everybody into the tent, but in a way that the rules meet the needs of all these players. At the same time, I also do argue in the book that we've gotten too far on globalization. Too many rules, yes. Too many constraints are now discussed and implemented at the global level, thus subverting the whole democratic process. And it can't be that, a lot of things are agreed in a closed room, either in Basel or Geneva or Paris, and then the country's leaders come back to implement them in the country without ever asking, should we actually do this? So that's the sense in which I think it's time that not only do we change the global structures in a way as to make it more democratic and more representative of the nature of the globe today, but at the same time, many more decisions should be first taken at the local or the national level, and only then should we have agreement at the global level. Otherwise, we have this frustration which demonstrates itself in the nationalism that you see in Europe, but also in some ways in India.
Okay. Well, you've spoken about universal basic income, and you've basically said that it's not something which even the United States can afford. But in India, we've embarked on this competitive income transfers. This is going to be a recurring expenditure year after year. Would you worry that India is also getting into fiscal profligacy, unaffordable fiscal profligacy?
Well, I do think that we need a fiscal commission which essentially maps out what the obligations are, including contingent liabilities of the government, and gives us a clean picture of what our fiscal position is. We are getting murkier and murkier on our budgetary processes, both at the central and the state level. And politicians may say, why fix what ain't broke? The problem is when that reaction comes, it comes suddenly, and it can be quite devastating. So we have to be very careful that the capital markets don't back up on us someday. And part of this clearer picture is what can we afford in terms of transfers? Because once you declare an entitlement, whether it's health insurance, whether it is a income support for certain categories of people or farmers, these, as you said, are recurring and may in fact grow over time if that category grows and its needs grow. So we are building up contingent liabilities at a fast pace. One of the points in the book was to say entitlements, once set in place, come back to haunt you 10, 20, 30 years down the line. And so it is imperative for India at this point to be very clear about what the cost of these entitlements is. It doesn't fly to say this is going to cost us 10,000 crores this year. What about 5 years from now when it's fully rolled out? How much is it going to cost? Look, targeted income for the very poor is something we can probably afford, but we need to think about how we target it effectively with minimal leakages and wind other systems of support into it. All these are very big changes because there's always resistance to moving other sort of transfers into this targeted income transfer to the very poor. It has to be the very poor because we can't really make significant transfers to a large part of the population. And we also have to think about the broader sort of supports to agriculture that we give, make it much more effective, but that's a separate issue. And when we put all this together, we have to see how much can we afford. And as a country, that's something that is really very important at this point when there's a lot of fiscal obfuscation.
Okay, well, I believe we have less than 2 minutes, so very quickly, one way to be able to afford is if the country grows, if the economy grows. What's your sense? Right now, some rating agency has marked down India's FY20 growth rate to below 7%, to 6.8. What's your own sense of the current India growth story over the next couple of years?
Look, I'm in the camp that I have no idea what the statistics are at this point. We've moved them up, down, we've changed them. I think what we need is a revamp to really figure out, what our true growth rate is. Certainly, I know one minister has said, how can we be growing at 7% and not have jobs? Well, one possibility is we're not growing at 7%. But really, I think the kind of demand coming from out there that seems to, at least at this point, anecdotal, but we'll know from the elections, is that we need economic growth that reaches us. That we need stronger sort of broad-based growth, which primarily for most people means good jobs. Okay. And what we need to do is focus on that. How do we create good jobs for the vast number of people who are leaving schools, who are leaving agriculture, who are leaving universities, in such a way that they can expand India's growth. A lot of people have said the population dividend should not become a population curse. This is the time when we need to make sure that in fact doesn't happen.
Okay. If I can get a one-line answer from you, are you worried about the Indian Statistical Organization and the data put out?
Look, I'm not worried. I just think we need now to essentially clean up, find out what in fact is the source of confusion with the new GDP numbers, with the revisions, etc. And I would say setting up an impartial body to look at it is an important step to restoring confidence. And it may well be that that body pronounces do thus and such to rebuild confidence. But we absolutely need better confidence in our GDP numbers now, given the back and forth that we've had.
No, actually the bigger problem is that one unemployment report has been kept under the wraps, and that is why the fear that true data is not being revealed. The worry that it is getting politicized, the statistical infrastructure.
Yeah, sorry. I meant something broader than just the GDP number. The whole statistical apparatus, we need sort of some outside impartial views to give us a sense of, are we doing the right thing and have the right procedures been followed? This is an area where India has tremendous strength, tremendous respect in the past. And I think recent events, for whatever reason, have sort of muddied the waters. I think we need to reestablish confidence because certainly navigating without good numbers is really navigating in the dark.
Okay.